All right, strap in, everyone, because today we are going deep on some truly game-changing AI research.
Oh, absolutely.
It's shaking things up in medicine. So we're talking about a large language model. We've heard about these before, right? But this one is called HuatuoGPT-o1.
Okay.
And what makes this one stand out? Well, it's been trained to tackle, get this, medical reasoning.
Wow.
I know, right?
That's huge.
It is. And the approach the researchers took with this is fascinating. They didn't just want to see, okay, can this AI spit out the right answers? They wanted to understand the process. How does it actually get to those answers?
Yeah.
Almost like if you imagine a doctor, a human doctor, thinking through a diagnosis.
Right. It's not just about memorizing symptoms. It's looking at all the pieces, right? The symptoms, medical history, test results, and then reasoning through all the possibilities.
Oh, for sure.
Weighing risks and benefits to come up with the most likely diagnosis.
Yeah, it's like solving a mystery.
Yeah.
Except the stakes
Much.
are way higher because we're talking about people's health.
Absolutely.
No pressure, AI. So how did the researchers even begin to teach an AI to do something this complex? Like, how do you even start with that?
Well, they started with the problem itself.
Okay.
They created a new type of medical problem, which they call verifiable medical problems.
Verifiable medical problems.
Verifiable medical problems, and they're more open-ended than your typical multiple-choice medical exam questions.
Oh, so they really wanted to make this AI thing, not just like, here's A, B, C, or D, pick one.
Right, right.
They wanted to make it work for it.
Exactly. So to illustrate this, let's look at an example from the paper.
Okay, great.
Imagine a 30-year-old woman who recently traveled to India.
Right.
She's experiencing fever, chills, headaches, and jaundice.
Okay, so she's not feeling good.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And so the AI is given this information and asked to figure out the most severe complication of this condition.
Oh, wow.
So it's not just, what does she have? It's
like, what's the worst that could happen?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so how did they make sure the AI wasn't just memorizing facts? Like, how do you actually teach reasoning?
Right. So they created a special two-stage training process, kind of like medical school, and then residency for the AI.
I like that.
So the first stage focuses on something called chain of thought reasoning, or COT.
All right, got it.
COT. And what that means is the AI is trained to generate a step-by-step thought process, almost like a doctor's inner monologue as they're working through the problem.
So it's thinking out loud.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can see exactly how the AI arrived at its conclusion.
So they're making the AI show its work.
Exactly. And this is crucial, especially in medicine, because understanding the why behind a diagnosis is so important.
For sure.
It's not just about the what, it's the why.
Absolutely.
And there are great examples of this in the paper.
Oh, are there?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So figure 3 shows this 51-year-old man with worsening shortness of breath, right?
Oh, geez. Okay.
The AI step-by-step goes through and identifies the key symptoms.
Wow.
Analyzes chest x-ray findings, and it meticulously goes through all the potential causes of heart failure.
It really is like a human doctor.
Yeah.
Going through all the steps.
Thinking it through, yeah.
I have to admit, I'm already pretty impressed.
Yeah.
But wait, you said there was a second stage to this training, right?
Yes.
What happens in the AI residency?
So that's where things get really exciting. This is where they use something called reinforcement learning, or RL.
RL. Okay, break that down for me. What is RL?
All right. Imagine you're training a dog.
Okay.
You reward them for good behavior, and you correct them when they make mistakes. Right.
I got you.
Reinforcement learning is similar. The AI gets rewards for solving problems correctly, and it's penalized for mistakes.
Oh, interesting. So there are consequences.
Exactly. And this constant feedback loop helps it refine its reasoning process and become more accurate over time.
So it's like it's constantly studying, taking practice exams, and learning from its mistakes.
Oh, that's
fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, so after all this training, how did HuatuoGPT-o1 actually perform? Like, did it pass its medical boards, so to speak?
Well, it didn't take any real-world exams, but it did go through a battery of benchmarks specifically designed to test medical reasoning.
Okay.
And the results are very impressive.
Give me the highlights.
Not only did it outperform other medical AIs, it actually held its own against some of the best general-purpose LLMs out there.
Hold on. So you're saying this specialized medical AI was going toe-to-toe with, like, the AI heavy hitters.
Exactly. That's huge.
It really is. And I think what I find even more significant is that the researchers were so focused on the process of reasoning.
Oh, interesting.
Not just getting the right answers.
Okay.
They made sure that the AI could explain how it got to its conclusions.
So it's not just about being right, it's about explaining why it's right.
Exactly. So the reasoning is transparent and verifiable. That makes a lot of sense, especially in medicine where trust and understanding are so critical.
Absolutely. They wanted to avoid the black box AI. They wanted to understand how it works.
So no mystery AI here.
Right. And that's crucial if we're ever going to trust AI to play a role in healthcare.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is also fascinating. But before we get too carried away, I'm curious, how do they even test the AI's reasoning ability? How do you measure that?
That's a great question, right? It's not an easy thing to measure.
Right.
So they did something really clever. They conducted an ablation study.
Okay, ablation study.
An ablation study.
Interesting. What is that?
It's basically a way to test how much each part of their approach contributed to the overall performance.
Oh, okay. So they're basically saying, let's remove this piece and see what happens.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. So what did they find?
The results were really interesting. They found that even when given the same training data, the AI performed significantly better when it was forced to generate that detailed chain of thought, that step-by-step explanation of its thinking.
So basically, making the AI explain its thinking actually made it smarter.
It really did, yeah.
That's wild.
It is. It shows that the process of articulating its reasoning actually enhances its problem-solving abilities.
Wow. That almost feels like we're uncovering some fundamental truth about how intelligence works.
Yeah.
Not just in AI, but maybe even in humans, you know?
You're right. It does raise some big questions about intelligence.
Yeah.
But for now, let's stick with the practical implications.
Okay.
So this focus on thinking out loud is a big trend in AI right now.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Especially in fields like medicine.
For sure.
Where that trust and transparency are paramount.
Right, because a black box AI that just spits out answers without any explanation, I mean, who's going to trust that?
Exactly.
Especially when it comes to your health.
Right. And it's not just about trust.
What else is it about?
It could also lead to better collaboration between doctors and AI.
Oh, interesting.
Because if a doctor can understand how the AI got to its diagnosis, they can better assess its validity.
Right, like double check it.
Exactly. Identify potential blind spots and ultimately make better decisions.
It really feels like the researchers behind HuatuoGPT-o1 were very aware of all of this.
Oh, yeah.
I noticed they even pointed out in their paper that the medical domain is actually a good testing ground for AI because it's a more contained area of knowledge, right? Compared to, say, trying to get AI to understand all of human history.
Right. It's too much, right?
It's too broad.
It's too broad.
But medicine, there's a lot there, but it's more focused.
It is.
It's more specific.
So it makes sense that this is kind of a good place to start, right?
It's like they gave the AI a really strong foundation in medical knowledge so it could then build on that, to develop those higher level reasoning skills.
So in a way, this research is not just about building better medical AI. It's about understanding how to make AI work better for us.
And it's a glimpse into the future, I think, of how humans and AI might work together.
Absolutely.
To solve all kinds of problems, not just medical.
For sure. Yeah.
This is really cool stuff.
It is.
But okay, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's go back to those results.
Okay.
You mentioned HuatuoGPT-o1 outperformed other medical AIs.
Yeah.
And it even held its own against some of those big general-purpose AIs. Can you tell me a little bit more about what stood out in those results?
Sure.
What was really interesting to you?
Well, one of the things that really jumped out at me was the impact of that two-stage training process. You could really see a difference between the AIs that went through both stages,
Right.
First learning that complex chain of thought reasoning, and then refining it with reinforcement learning.
Right, like medical school and then residency.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Versus the AIs that only went through the first stage.
Right. So it really shows the value of that second stage.
Yes, absolutely.
Like the refinement process.
It's like the AI residency really made a difference.
It really did.
Yeah.
It's just like with human doctors.
Exactly.
That intensive period of hands-on learning and feedback.
Yes, the feedback is key.
Yeah.
It really hones those skills.
Absolutely.
So were there any other details from the results that you found particularly interesting?
Well, we talked a lot about the importance of the thinking out loud aspect, the chain of thought reasoning.
Right.
And that ablation study that they did really drove that point home.
Mm.
You know, it showed that forcing the AI to articulate its reasoning,
Yes.
it actually improved its performance significantly.
That's right.
So it's like they're saying to the AI, show your work.
Yeah, exactly.
And it turns out that showing its work actually makes the AI itself more effective.
Fascinating, right?
Yeah, it is.
So this is huge for AI design in the future.
Absolutely.
Especially in fields like medicine, where that transparency and explainability are so important.
Right. Because it's not enough to just get the answer right.
No.
You got to know how you got there.
Exactly, especially when lives are at stake.
Absolutely. Okay, so this all sounds incredible.
Yeah.
But I have to ask.
Yeah.
How do we know that the reasoning process itself is sound? You know, like in this case, they relied on another AI, GPT-4o, to act as a verifier, right?
Right.
How do we know that AI is up to the task?
You bring up a very good point,
Yeah.
and the researchers were very careful to address this.
Okay.
So to ensure the reliability of the verifier, they manually checked 200 scoring instances
Wow.
from both stages of training.
So they double-check the checker, basically.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
And what were the results of that?
Well, as you can see in Figure 4, GPT-4o achieved an accuracy of 96.5% in Stage 1 and 94.5% in Stage 2.
Wow, that's really good.
It's not perfect,
Yeah.
but it's remarkably close.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's ever going to be 100%,
Right.
but that's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Okay, but did they try anything else? Like, were there any other verification methods they tested?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
They also tested something called the exact match method,
Okay, exactly.
which basically just uses a computer program
Okay.
to see if the AI's answer matched the correct answer exactly.
So it's just looking at the final answer.
Right. It doesn't consider the reasoning.
Got it.
And as you can see in the figure,
Yeah.
that method was much less accurate.
Okay, so using a more sophisticated AI,
Right.
like GPT-4o,
Yeah.
as a verifier seems like it's really key
It does, yes.
to making this whole approach work.
Exactly.
It really highlights that you need a system
Right.
that can understand and evaluate.
Yes.
Not just the final answer,
Right.
but that whole thought process behind it.
Exactly.
It almost makes you think about like the role of AI
Yeah.
in evaluating other AI, like a peer review process.
Like peer review for AI.
Exactly.
That's a great point.
Okay, so all of this research that we've talked about so far has been in English.
Right.
But have they explored whether this approach works in other languages and other medical contexts?
That's a great question.
Yeah, because medicine is not just an English-speaking thing.
No, not at all.
It's a global thing.
It is, yeah.
So have they looked at that?
They have, and it's really exciting.
Okay, tell me about it.
So they took their method to the Chinese medical domain,
Oh.
which is especially interesting because it's a totally different language
Right.
and a different cultural context.
Right.
So it's a great test to see how well this approach would translate.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how they did that. Walk me through it.
Okay, so they started by building a data set of 40,000 verifiable Chinese medical questions.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they used data from the CMB exam.
CMB exam.
It's a standard medical licensing exam in China.
Okay.
Then they trained a new version of their model called HuatuoGPT-o1 7B's AP.
Okay, so they basically adapted their whole approach to work with a Chinese language model.
Exactly.
It's like they translated the whole medical school curriculum into Chinese.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's amazing. Okay, so how did this Chinese-speaking AI perform? Did it do as well as its English-speaking counterpart?
The results are incredibly encouraging.
Okay, tell me.
HuatuoGPT-o1 7BZ actually outperformed other Chinese LLMs
Wow.
that were a similar size
Okay.
on several benchmarks, including the Chinese test set from MedQA, the CMB exam test set, and the CM exam test set.
Oh, wow. So they really put it through its paces.
You did.
Okay.
They even tested it on the medical section of CMMLU.
TMLU.
It's a general Chinese language understanding benchmark.
Oh.
And it performed really well there, too.
So it wasn't just good at medicine, it was good at understanding Chinese in general.
Exactly.
That is really impressive.
It is. It really suggests that this approach isn't limited to English.
Right.
It can be applied to a wide range of languages and medical contexts around the world.
And this opens up some amazing possibilities for global health, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Imagine AI assisting doctors and patients all over the world,
Yeah.
regardless of their language or cultural background.
Right. That's a future I want to live in.
Me too. It's a really exciting thought.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, even with all this groundbreaking research,
Right.
it's important to remember that no research is perfect.
Of course not, no.
What are some of the limitations of this approach that we should keep in mind?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. While this research is a big step forward, there are some limitations.
Right.
So firstly, the data set of verifiable medical problems, although impressive,
Yeah.
is still relatively small.
Okay, so even though they've made a lot of progress,
Yeah.
more data is always better.
More data is always better, exactly.
Okay.
And the researchers acknowledge they need to expand it to include even more medical conditions,
Okay, that makes sense.
to make the AI more robust.
Okay, what other limitations did they point out?
Another one is that even though the AI can reason through problems in a human-like way,
Right,
it's still heavily reliant on the data it was trained on.
right.
And we all know that data can be biased or incomplete.
Right, it's like giving a brilliant student a textbook full of errors.
That's a perfect analogy.
Right.
Yeah. And then finally, while they've done amazing work to make the AI's reasoning process more transparent,
Right.
there's still room for improvement.
Okay.
Even with the thinking out loud approach.
Right.
There might be parts of the AI's decision-making that are still hard for us to grasp.
So we're not quite at the point where we can, like, have a philosophical debate with the AI
Not yet.
about its medical reasoning.
Not yet. But with all the innovation happening in AI,
Yeah.
who knows, maybe someday soon.
Right. Maybe that's coming.
Exactly.
It is exciting to think about.
It is. It is.
It really is. It is exciting to think about.
It is. It is. So this research, right, it's not just about making AI more transparent for humans. It's also about making it more reliable, I think.
Oh, okay. Interesting. How so?
Because by forcing it to go through this rigorous reasoning process, we can identify potential biases
Oh, okay.
or errors.
So it's like building in a system of checks and balances,
Exactly.
not just for ethical
Yes,
reasons,
right.
but also to make sure it's actually accurate.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So it's about making it better all around.
It is. Okay, all this is amazing, but I have one more question about these results.
Okay.
I'm looking at table 1 in the paper, and I'm seeing a really clear difference
Okay.
in performance between those AIs that went through both stages of training.
Right.
You know, first learning that chain of thought reasoning and then refining it with reinforcement learning.
Yeah, the two-stage process.
Yes, exactly.
It really makes a difference.
Versus the ones that only went through the first stage.
Right. It's like anything, right? The more practice you get,
Exactly.
the better you become.
So that second stage, that AI residency, seems really crucial.
It does, yeah.
It really seems to make a difference.
Like that intensive feedback and refinement.
It's like they're going back and saying, okay, how can we do this even better?
Exactly.
And they just keep getting better and better.
And learning from their mistakes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'm also looking at table 2, and I'm seeing that the ablation study
All right.
really backs up this idea of thinking out loud,
Yeah.
making that AI articulate its reasoning.
Mm.
It seems like it was key to improving performance.
It was, yeah.
It wasn't just a nice to have, it actually made the AI better,
It's fundamental, yeah.
which is so interesting, right?
It is. It's like, it's not enough to just have the knowledge.
Right.
You have to be able to explain it.
You have to be able to apply it
Hearing right.
and communicate it.
Exactly.
And that process of communication
Yeah.
actually seems to make the AI itself more effective.
Which is wild.
It is. And it makes me think that this idea of show your work
Yeah.
might be something we need to think about a lot more in AI development,
Oh, absolutely.
especially in fields like medicine, where transparency is so important.
Yeah, you want to know that the AI is making decisions
Yes,
for the right reasons,
exactly.
not just spitting out random answers.
Right. And if it can't explain how it got there,
Right.
then how can we trust it?
Exactly.
So this idea of explainable AI,
Mhm.
I think this is a really big deal.
It is. And I think it's going to be even bigger in the future
Yeah.
as
Yep.
AI becomes more prevalent in our lives.
Absolutely. Okay, now I know we talked about how the researchers used GPT-4o, another AI,
Right.
to act as a verifier in this research.
Right. To double check the work.
Exactly. But I'm wondering,
Yeah.
is that a potential issue? I mean, relying on one AI to evaluate another, could that introduce some bias?
That's a valid concern. It's like a student grading their own homework.
Exactly.
Right.
So how did the researchers make sure that the verification process was actually robust and unbiased?
Well, they did a couple of things. First, they chose GPT-4o as the verifier because it's one of the most advanced language models out there.
Okay, so they went with the top of the line.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
And they also made sure that GPT-4o was specifically trained on a data set of medical reasoning problems.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't just a general purpose AI, it was actually specialized for this task.
Exactly. And that specialization is key, right? Because you need a verifier that understands the nuances.
Logical reasoning.
Right. Otherwise, it might miss something important.
Exactly.
Okay, so they went with a specialized AI. But how do we know it was actually doing a good job? Did they double check the checker?
They did it. They manually reviewed a subset of the scoring instances to make sure GPT-4o was evaluating the reasoning correctly.
And how did it do?
It did really well.
Okay, good.
They found a high level of agreement.
Okay, that's reassuring.
Between GPT-4o's evaluations and the researchers' own assessments.
So they basically confirmed that the verifier was on the right track.
That's good to hear, because I think it's really important to address those concerns about potential bias.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially when we're talking about AI in medicine.
Right, the stakes are high.
They are. All right, so we've talked a lot about HuatuoGPT-o1's impressive performance.
Yeah.
Its ability to reason like a doctor, explain its thinking,
Right.
and the potential for this kind of technology to really revolutionize healthcare.
It is very exciting.
It is. But we've also talked about some of the limitations.
Right.
Like the fact that the data set is still relatively small.
Yeah, there's always room for improvement.
Absolutely.
And the fact that the AI is still dependent on the data it was trained on.
Right. Which means we need to be very careful about data quality and bias.
Exactly. Garbage in, garbage out, as they say.
Exactly. Okay, so with all that in mind, I'm wondering, what are your biggest takeaways from this research? What makes it so groundbreaking?
Well, I think there are a few key things. First, it's the focus on verifiable medical reasoning. The researchers didn't just want to create an AI that could answer medical questions. They wanted to create an AI that could reason through those questions.
Right, like a doctor would.
Exactly. And that's a huge step forward.
It is.
Second, it's the emphasis on transparency and explainability.
Okay.
By making the AI's thought process visible, the researchers have created a system that is more trustworthy.
Right, and more understandable.
Exactly.
Which is essential for building trust.
It is.
With doctors and patients.
Absolutely, yeah. And third, it's the use of reinforcement learning to refine the AI's reasoning.
Okay.
This approach allows the AI to continuously learn and improve over time.
So it's not just a static system.
No, it's constantly evolving.
It's constantly learning.
Exactly.
Which is amazing.
It is. So taken together, these innovations represent a major leap forward in AI for medicine.
Yeah, I agree. This research really pushes the boundaries of what's possible.
It does.
And it gives us a glimpse into a future where AI could play a truly transformative role in healthcare. It's really exciting to think about.
It is. But as with any new technology, we need to be mindful of the potential risks and ethical implications.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't something we could just blindly adopt without careful consideration.
No, not at all. We need to have open and honest conversations about how to use AI responsibly.
Especially in a field as sensitive as healthcare.
Exactly, where people's lives are at stake.
Right. So we need to make sure that AI is used to benefit everyone.
Right, to improve patient outcomes,
Yes.
to enhance doctors' abilities.
And not to create new problems.
Exactly. So it's a balancing act, right?
Yeah, it is. It is a balancing act. But I think the potential benefits here are so great.
They are.
That it's definitely worth exploring further.
Oh, absolutely.
We need to continue researching
Yes.
and developing these technologies responsibly.
Absolutely. And always keep the patient at the center of our thinking.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the English language version of HuatuoGPT-o1.
Right.
But you mentioned earlier that the researchers also tested their approach in the Chinese medical domain.
Yes, they did. They wanted to see if this approach could be generalized to other languages and cultural contexts.
And what did they find? Did it work?
It did. The results were incredibly promising.
Okay, tell me more about this Chinese version of the model.
So they trained a new model called HuatuoGPT-o1 7Bs up.
Okay, so a new name, a new model.
New name, yeah.
Specifically for Chinese.
Specifically for Chinese, yes.
Got it.
And they used a data set of 40,000 verifiable Chinese medical questions.
Wow, okay. So they put in the work to create a really solid data set.
They did, and that's crucial, right?
Yeah.
You need good data to train a good model.
Absolutely. Okay, so how did this Chinese-speaking AI perform?
It performed exceptionally well.
Wow, okay.
It outperformed other Chinese LLMs of a similar size on several benchmarks.
So it wasn't just Like, okay, it's doing all right for a Chinese model.
Right.
It was actually exceeding expectations.
It was, yes. Which is really encouraging, right?
It is. It suggests that this approach isn't limited by language or cultural context.
Exactly. It has the potential to be truly global.
Right. Which is so important when we think about the potential impact of AI in healthcare.
Absolutely.
Because healthcare is a global issue.
It is. And access to quality healthcare is a fundamental human right.
Absolutely. Okay, so this Chinese version of the model is really promising.
It is.
And it opens up some exciting possibilities for the future of AI in medicine.
It does. And it also highlights the importance of diversity in AI research.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
Well, we need to make sure that AI systems are developed and tested in a way that reflects the diversity of the human population.
Right, because if AI is only trained on data from one language or one culture, it's going to be limited in its ability to understand and serve the needs of everyone.
Exactly, and that's not what we want, right?
No, absolutely not.
We want AI to be a force for good in the world.
Yes.
To benefit all of humanity.
And I think this research is a great example of how we can move in that direction.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction.
It is. It is. Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier.
Okay.
The potential ethical implications of using AI in medicine.
Right, yeah.
We talked about the need for transparency and explainability.
Yes.
But there are other ethical considerations too, right?
Absolutely. There are a lot of ethical considerations.
Like what?
Well, for example, how do we ensure that AI is used fairly and equitably? Right. We don't want AI systems that perpetuate existing biases.
Right. We don't want to create a system that further disadvantages certain groups of people.
Exactly. And we also need to think about privacy.
Okay, privacy, yeah.
How do we protect patient data when it's being used to train and evaluate AI systems?
That's a huge question.
It is. It is. And then there's the question of accountability.
Okay, accountability.
If an AI system makes a mistake, who's responsible?
That's a tough one.
It is. Is it the doctor? Is it the AI developer? Is it the hospital? These are all complex questions that we need to grapple with as we integrate AI into healthcare.
Yeah, I agree. These are not easy answers.
No, they're not. But they're important questions.
They are. They are. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've talked about the incredible potential of AI in medicine.
Yes.
But we've also acknowledged that there are real challenges and ethical considerations that we need to address.
Absolutely.
So with all that in mind, I'm wondering, what's your overall outlook on the future of AI in healthcare? Are you optimistic? Cautious? A little bit of both.
You know, I'm actually very optimistic.
Okay.
I think AI has the potential to truly revolutionize healthcare. To improve patient outcomes, to make healthcare more accessible and affordable, and to help us solve some of the biggest challenges facing healthcare systems around the world.
Yeah, I agree. It's really exciting to think about all the possibilities.
It is. But I'm also cautious because we need to proceed carefully and thoughtfully. We need to make sure that AI is developed and used ethically, responsibly, and in a way that benefits all of humanity.
Absolutely. I think that's a really important point to end on.
It is.
You know, we need to keep the human element at the center of all of this. And make sure that AI is used to enhance our lives. Not to replace us.
Exactly.
All right. So as we wrap up part 2 of our deep dive into HuatuoGPT-o1, I'm left with this feeling of like cautious optimism.
Yes, I think that's a good way to put it.
You know, it's exciting.
It is.
But we need to proceed with caution.
Absolutely.
So stay tuned for part 3, where we'll explore even more about the implications of this research.
Okay, sounds good.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into this incredible AI research.
It's been quite a journey.
It has.
Exploring the world of HuatuoGPT-o1 and all its implications.
I know, right? I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
We have, but I think we've touched on some really key points.
We have. So just to recap for everyone listening. We've been talking about this groundbreaking new AI, HuatuoGPT-o1. Which is specifically designed to tackle medical reasoning.
And not just getting the right answer, but actually explaining its thinking.
Yes, that's the key. That's what makes this research so special.
It is.
That focus on transparency and explainability. It's not a black box.
No, not at all.
It's like the AI is showing its work.
Exactly.
Which is crucial if we ever want to trust AI to play a role in something as important as healthcare.
Absolutely. You know, I think one of the things that really impressed me about this research was the researchers' commitment to ethical considerations. They didn't shy away from the potential risks of this technology.
No, they didn't.
They dedicated a whole section of their paper to talking about the need for responsible development and deployment.
Right. It wasn't just about, look what we can do.
No, they were very aware of the potential downsides.
Right.
And they were upfront about it, which I think is really important.
It is. It shows a level of maturity and responsibility.
Yeah, and it sets a good example for other researchers in the field.
It does. So where do we go from here?
Ooh.
What does this research mean for the future of AI in medicine?
Well, I think we can expect to see a lot more research building on these findings,
Okay.
especially in developing models that can tackle even more complex medical problems
Oh, wow.
and provide even richer explanations for their reasoning.
So it's just the beginning.
It is, yeah.
This is the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly.
I like that. Okay, so as this technology continues to mature, do you think we'll actually see it being used in real-world healthcare settings? Like in hospitals and clinics?
I do. I think it's inevitable.
Wow.
And I think it has the potential to be incredibly beneficial.
Okay, how so?
Well, imagine AI helping doctors diagnose diseases earlier,
Yeah.
personalize treatments with incredible precision,
Wow.
and maybe even discover new cures.
That's pretty amazing.
It is. It's mind-blowing when you think about the possibilities.
It is. It is. So it sounds like you're pretty optimistic about the future of AI in medicine.
I am. I really am.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I think it has the potential to truly transform healthcare for the better.
I agree. It's a really exciting time to be alive
It is.
and to be witnessing this incredible progress.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how far we've come.
It is. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up our deep dive into HuatuoGPT-o1. Thanks for joining us on this fascinating journey.
It's been a pleasure.
It has. And to everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the cutting edge of knowledge, so stay tuned.